The box showed up on my doorstep around 11, right in the middle of Mason tearing into his birthday pancakes with chocolate syrup all over his face. Big silver bow on top, no card, just a printed label. To Mason Bellamy. That last name hit me like a punch. Not Mason Carter, not mine. The Bellamy's name, Alan and Patrice. I stood there staring at the label while Mason peeked around me, already hyped from the sound of tape being ripped. "Is it from Grandpa Alan?" he asked, eyes wide. "Looks like it," I said, setting the box on the table. It was big, way too big for just birthday clothes or books. I already knew something was off. Let me back up a second. I'm Kevin Carter, 55. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment in North Ridgeville, Ohio, with my 10-year-old son, Mason. His mom, Ivy, walked out on us 3 years ago and never looked back. I've been holding it down solo since. Quick note. Before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. Mason was buzzing to open the box, so I gave him the nod. He yanked the bow off like it was Christmas morning and flipped the top open. His face lit up like fireworks. "Whoa, Dad, it's a drone," he yelled, like the kind from YouTube. It wasn't just a drone, it was a top shelf. Designer model drone with high-def cams, extra rotors, custom controller, and VR headset attachments. The kind I couldn't afford if I skipped rent for 2 months. Mason was already holding it like it was the Holy Grail. "Can we take it to the park today, please?" I forced a smile. "Yeah, we can go later." But my stomach was twisted. The Bellamys never gave anything just to give. I reached back in the box and pulled out the instruction manual. Something was slipped inside, a printed message, folded neat. "You deserve better than what he can give you. Ask your mom why she left." I froze. My face went cold. I folded the paper and shoved it in my back pocket. "Mace, go grab your coat," I said. "We'll go now before it gets crowded." I tucked the drone back into its box, notes and all, and pushed it into the hall closet like it was ticking. Mason came back with his coat zipped up to his chin, still smiling like he'd just won the lottery. We spent the afternoon at the park, and I let him fly it. Watched him laugh, crash it, fix it, fly it again. But the whole time, my eyes stayed glued to that controller. It wasn't a gift. It was bait. That night, once the dishes were done and his cake coma wore off, I sat next to him on the couch while he clicked through some drone videos on my laptop. "Mace," I said quietly, "did you read anything weird in the box today? Anything printed, like a note or a message?" He didn't even look up at first. "Yeah, I saw something about a real home, but I figured it was just an ad or something." "Where did you see it?" "I don't know, the manual, I think." "Why?" He finally looked at me. "Was it something bad?" I kept my voice steady. "Nah, it just caught my eye. Just wanted to make sure you didn't think too hard about it." He shrugged and went back to the screen, completely innocent. And that's what made my stomach flip again. They weren't coming after me anymore. They were going after him. After he went to bed, I opened my laptop and started typing. To Ivy Bellamy. Subject drone. What the hell are your parents playing at? There were hidden messages in the box. Real home? Ask your mom why she left. This isn't harmless. This is manipulation. You need to tell them to back off. Now. I hit send and sat there staring at my screen like it owed me something. Her reply came an hour later. They were just notes from concerned grandparents. Don't overreact. That was it. 8 words. No apology, no explanation, no ownership. Just classic Ivy. Deflect, minimize, disappear. Let me paint it straight for you. Ivy and I met in our late 20s. She was smart, charming, lit up every room. Her parents, Alan and Patrice, had money coming out their ears. Country clubs, private planes, the whole fantasy package. I was working at a mid-sized tech firm as a project manager. Nothing flashy. I made a decent living, paid my bills. But to them, I was a phase, a speed bump on our way to something better. From day one, they were all over us, always sending articles, how to raise exceptional children, how to future-proof your finances. Patrice once mailed me a 10-page printout about how much more Ivy could have earned if she'd married someone with an MBA. Real subtle. Things started slipping when Mason was 5. My company downsized. I got laid off, and we were scraping for a while. Ivy hated it, said I lacked ambition, like that was a character flaw. She started taking long weekends to LA for work retreats. Turns out one of those weekends turned into a new relationship, with some VP her dad had handpicked. She left 2 months later, no real warning, packed a suitcase while Mason was at school, handed me divorce papers, and moved to California like we'd never existed. And just like that, the Bellamy's closed ranks. She got the lawyer, I got the kid. They haven't stopped trying to flip that script ever since. I get the occasional holiday text from Ivy, usually 3 words, always late. But her parents? They've made it their mission to stay involved. Every few months, something shows up. A designer coat Mason didn't need, a drone, a check with no strings in the memo line. Yeah, right, the worst was 2 years ago, a sleek envelope addressed to Mason for his 8th birthday. Inside was a $500 gift card and a glossy brochure for some elite boarding school in Vermont. They accidentally included the tuition pricing, too. I remember Mason saying, "Is this where I'm supposed to go someday?" That night, I went out to the garage and punched the wall so hard I split the drywall. I had to explain to him it was just a mistake, that no one was sending him away. But now, I'm starting to see it for what it is. A slow drip. A whisper campaign. They're planting seeds. I went into Mason's room that night and just stood in the doorway for a minute, watching him sleep with the covers kicked off and one sock missing. Kid didn't even know what game he was stuck in the middle of. Ivy may have walked away clean, but her parents didn't. They stuck around, not because they cared, but because they hate losing. And if they think I'm handing my son over without a fight, they've got no idea who they're dealing with. I shut the door quietly and headed straight for the closet. Time to pull that drone back out and find out what else they hid. I set the drone on the kitchen table, flipped it over, and started unscrewing the battery plate. My hands were still tight from the day, but I wasn't letting it go until I got every answer. Inside, nestled under the wiring and foam, I found 4 more messages. Tiny, folded strips of cream paper, like fortune cookie slips without the cookie. The first one read, "Your father is stuck. We can give you wings." I didn't even bother unfolding the next 3. I already knew what they'd say. More of the same poison, dressed up as love. I called Danielle. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, everything okay? Number? Got a minute?" I didn't wait. The Bellamys sent Mason a drone today for his birthday. Expensive as hell. They stuffed it with hidden notes. There was a pause, then she swore under her breath. "You're kidding." I wish I was. One of them said, "Ask your mom why she left." Another said, "We can give you a real home, like I'm running a shelter and they've got a damn mansion waiting." Danielle sucked in air through her teeth. "You remember the boarding school thing, right? When they gave him that $500 card and just happened to include a pamphlet for that place in Vermont? How could I forget?" Mason asked if he was moving. "They've been pulling this crap since Ivy left, drip by drip." I leaned back in the chair and looked at the notes again. "Yeah, and I think it's time I start tracking it. Every letter, every gift, every stunt." "About damn time. Make a file, build a case. That family only understands paper trails and legal threats." After we hung up, I went to the hall closet and pulled out the old banker's box I use for bills and tax crap, cleared out a few folders and slapped a label on the front with a black Sharpie. Manipulation evidence. And that's exactly what it was. I dropped the drone messages in first. Then I printed Ivy's email, the one with her cold 8-word shrug. Then the boarding school pamphlet, which I'd saved because I never throw out anything with a logo that shiny. The memories came back fast, and they weren't exactly soft focus. Right after Ivy left, before custody was even settled, Alan called me man to man, said he wanted to ease the transition, offered me a job, part-time consulting with one of his companies, decent pay, said he'd cover Mason's private school tuition and buy us a townhome closer to Ivy, all expenses covered. But, he said, we'd need some security. Ivy should be listed as joint guardian, just in case. Yeah, just in case he wanted to legally yank Mason out of my life. I told him to go to hell and hung up. Danielle was the only one who backed me then. Everyone else acted like I was paranoid. But now, even a blind man could see what they were doing. It was a long con dressed in birthday bows and good intentions. I walked over to my filing cabinet and dug out an old envelope. Inside were clippings and papers I'd kept during the early years with Ivy. I remembered the first time her parents sent me a package. Thick envelope full of parenting books and financial planning guides. No note. Just the titles alone were a punch to the ribs. Raising excellence in uncertain times and a father's fiscal duty, like they were trying to teach me how to be a man from 1,000 miles away. They saw Mason as a legacy project, a name to mold, a Bellamy, not a Carter, and me, I was just the roadblock they couldn't bulldoze. I sat back down at the table, pulled the drone toward me again, and picked apart the rest of the casing. Under the rotor housing, I found another note, the last one. "One day you'll see. We just want what's best for 'em." I laughed out loud. No signature, no guts. Just another fake whisper pretending to be love. I shoved all 5 notes into the file folder and sealed it shut. Then I made a copy of each one and put those in a backup envelope. One set for the lawyer, one for me. This wasn't about pride anymore. This was war, and they just drew first blood through my kid. No more waiting, no more giving them the benefit of the doubt. I was going to burn their paper trail with fire of my own. The next morning, I left the drone box on the counter as a reminder and drove straight to Mason's school. No appointment. I just walked in and asked to speak with a counselor, Ms. Raines. Thankfully, she made time. We sat in her office, door closed, blinds half drawn. I laid the drone notes out one by one on her desk. "These were hidden inside my son's birthday gift," I said. "From his grandparents." She looked down, read each one slowly. Her mouth pressed into a tight line. "This is—" She hesitated. "Highly inappropriate. I can see why you're concerned." "They're trying to wedge themselves between us," I said. "And I don't want Mason tangled up in their crap." She nodded. "I'll make a record of this. It may not fall under direct harassment, but it absolutely borders on emotional interference. Let me put you in touch with someone." She typed something, handed me a card. "Family law firm, local, reputable. They've worked with cases like this before," she said, "and I'll also flag their names on Mason's school profile. If they ever show up here without your consent, they're not getting near him." "Thank you." I left feeling halfway sane for the first time in days. That same afternoon, I stopped by Mason's soccer practice and pulled Coach Lang aside. "Hey, quick thing," I said. "Mason's maternal grandparents, the Bellamys, I need them off the pickup list." He raised an eyebrow. "Everything okay?" "Just complicated. If they ever show up saying they're supposed to take Mason, don't let them. Call me, directly." "Got it." I went home, updated the school form, the team roster, and even Mason's doctor's office file. Every place that had his name got a fresh copy of my legal custody papers and a very clear note. Do not release to Alan or Patrice Bellamy under any circumstance. That night, my phone buzzed with a text from Ivy. "Ivy, my parents are planning to fly in this weekend to surprise Mason. Just giving you a heads up." I stared at the screen. She didn't ask. She told me. Me, no, not without my consent. Tell them to stay home. 15 minutes later, she texted back one word. Ivy. Noted. Which, in Ivy speak, meant she read it and didn't give a damn. Saturday morning, I was tying Mason's cleats on the bleachers when I saw the black Range Rover roll up to the parking lot. I knew that car. Knew it too well. My jaw clenched. "Hey, bud," I said. "Go warm up with the team." He ran off toward the field just as the doors opened. Alan stepped out first in a tan quarter zip, sunglasses on, acting like he owned the damn league. Patrice followed, holding one of those fancy shopping bags from some overpriced tech store. They weren't just here to watch. They were here to perform. I stood and walked straight toward them. Alan spotted me coming, but kept walking like he hadn't done a damn thing wrong. He flashed that politician smile, the one that always looked painted on, and opened his arms like he was about to hug the Pope. "Kevin, there he is," he said, loud enough for a few nearby parents to glance over. Patrice hung back with the gift bag, smiling like she was here for a commercial shoot. They were dressed too clean for a soccer game. No dirt on their shoes, no chill in their faces. Just polished, empty charm. I said no, I told him, stopping in front of them. Alan didn't blink. "We're just here to see our grandson. It's his birthday week, isn't it?" Patrice stepped up beside him, holding out the bag like a prize. "We brought him something useful, a tablet, for schoolwork." I didn't take it. From the corner of my eye, I saw Mason jogging toward us, wiping sweat off his forehead with his sleeve. Alan took a step forward like he was about to call out to him. I raised a hand. "Don't." "Come on, Kevin," Alan said, voice light, like we were old college buddies. "Let the boy have his grandparents. We just want him to have everything he needs." I stepped in front of them fully and lowered my voice. "You want to talk about what he needs? Let's talk about what you don't get to do. Manipulate a 10-year-old into doubting his own father. Alan's smile froze. Patrice's eyes narrowed just a hair. Let's take a walk, I said, and turned, not waiting for them to agree. We moved behind the bleachers, far enough from the parents and kids, close enough to the edge of the field that I could still see Mason kicking the ball with his friends. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the manila folder I'd been carrying for a week. I opened it and held up the first printed slip. You deserve better than what he can give you. Then the next. We can give you wings. I let the stack fan out in my hands, one message after another. You want to talk concern? I said. Let's talk manipulation. Alan's mask slipped, just a flicker, but enough to see the real face underneath. That was private, he snapped. Those notes were for Mason. They weren't threats. No, I said. They were lies, and they were calculated. You didn't send him a drone. You sent a bomb. Patrice finally spoke. He's our grandson. We're allowed to have a relationship with him. Not like this, I fired back. Not behind my back, not filling his head with questions about his home, his family, and whether he's being held back. He's 10. You don't get to rewrite his life to fit your narrative. Alan's voice dropped, sharp now. This bitterness, this is exactly why he deserves better. You're limiting his future with your stubborn pride. I stepped closer. Number? I'm protecting his future from people who treat love like a stock investment, who only show up when they want control. Patrice opened her mouth, but I cut her off. Save it. You think showing up with shiny gifts and Ivy's last name gives you rights? You think you're untouchable because you wrap poison in silver bows? Alan squared his shoulders. You're making this hostile. No, Alan. You made this hostile the second you used a birthday gift to recruit my son. He went quiet. You pull one more stunt like this, I said, slow and clear, and I'll file for a restraining order. You're done using Mason as leverage. You show up uninvited again, you'll be escorted off the field. Patrice scoffed. You wouldn't do that to family. You're not family, I said. You're a legal liability. Alan's jaw tensed. He's ours too, Kevin. No, I said. He's mine. I raised him. I stayed. You ghosted until it was time to make him your project. I let the words hang there. Let the truth bite the way it needed to. They didn't reply. Alan turned first, walking back toward the car like someone who'd just lost a business deal. Patrice gave me one last look, full of disdain dressed in pearls, then followed. I stayed behind the bleachers for a few seconds, just breathing, watching Mason laugh with his teammates like nothing was wrong. Then I folded up the messages, slid them back into the folder, and walked back to the sideline. The game had just started. After the game, Mason jogged over, flushed and grinning. Did you see that save? He asked, cheeks pink from the cold and running. Sure did, buddy. You crushed it. I ruffled his hair, then nodded toward the parking lot. How about we grab some ice cream? Even though it's cold? Especially because it's cold. We hit our usual spot, Scoopers on Main. He got birthday cake flavor with gummy worms jammed in. I stuck with black cherry. We sat at the little window booth while the overhead light flickered like it always did. Mason was quiet for a few minutes, just chewing and looking out the window. Then he asked, why were Grandma Patrice and Grandpa Alan mad? I didn't lie. Because I asked them to leave. They didn't respect our boundaries. They said something weird to me, he said, licking his spoon. Before the game, Grandma said they'd give me a real home someday. My stomach flipped, but I kept my voice calm. How did that make you feel? He shrugged. Weird. Like, isn't this my real home? Yeah, it is, I said. And you're not wrong for feeling that way. He stared at the bottom of his bowl, then pushed it aside. It didn't feel like a nice thing to say. It felt like she was saying, you're not enough. I took a breath, leaned in a little. Mason, sometimes people use love like a tool, to get something, to shift things their way. Real love doesn't do that. It doesn't come with pressure or guilt or big promises. It shows up. It stays. That's it. He nodded slowly. Okay. That was all he needed. That was all I wanted him to know. A week later, I got a letter in the mail from a firm in Cleveland. Fancy envelope. Bellamy money written all over it. Our clients, Alan and Patrice Bellamy, intend to pursue visitation rights through the family court system. I didn't even finish the sentence before pulling out my phone and snapping a picture from my lawyer. She called me back that afternoon. They've got no legal standing, she said. You've got full custody, no history of neglect. And now you've got documentation showing they've tried to manipulate your kid. This is posturing, she laughed. Then they don't know you. I drafted a response with her help and sent it certified mail 2 days later. No contact permitted unless clear boundaries are agreed to in writing. All communication to go through legal channels. Further attempts to bypass custody agreements will result in formal legal action. Clean, director, no cracks left to crawl through. For once, I didn't second guess it. For once, I wasn't playing defense. Days turned into weeks, and the silence stretched. No more surprise deliveries, no calls, no smug little notes pretending to be love. Just quiet, and honestly, it was exactly what we needed. I didn't realize how much tension had crept into the house until it was gone. Mason wasn't constantly checking the mail anymore or asking weird questions about California. He stopped bringing up Ivy or the Bellamys altogether. He just lived, focused, happy. His grades ticked up. He started sleeping through the night again. Even his soccer game sharpened. Less distracted, more present. The air in the apartment felt different too. Lighter, like we'd cracked a window and let something toxic out. We started something new, just for us. Saturday build days. No screens, no phones, just tools, glue, and the satisfaction of putting something together from scratch. First, we built a model rocket from a kit I found online. Next weekend, it was a cheap bookcase for his room. Crooked, but solid. The weekend after that, we tackled a 1,000-piece puzzle of the solar system. Took us 4 hours and 2 slices of pizza each. One Saturday morning, while we were sorting bolts for a desk, I said, "You know, building stuff with you might be my new favorite thing." He grinned. "More fun than yelling at rich people?" I laughed. "Way more." He didn't bring up the Bellamys often, but when he did, it wasn't with confusion anymore. It was clarity. He understood enough to name what was happening, even if he didn't know all the terms for it yet. I started explaining things in pieces, not too heavy, just enough to help him feel grounded. Real love, I told him one night while we were eating cereal on the couch, doesn't feel like pressure or guilt. It's not something people hand out just to get something back. If it feels like a game, it probably is. He looked at me real serious and said, "So when they said I could have a better life if I left here, that was a game?" "Yeah," I said. "That was a lie wrapped in a nice box." He nodded like he'd already figured it out, but just needed it confirmed. Later that week, I told him I'd started seeing someone. Casual, early days. Her name was Andrea. Divorced, smart, normal. She worked at the hardware store and knew the difference between a flathead and a Phillips faster than I did. We were grabbing coffee twice a week, nothing more. I told Mason straight up, "You always come first. That's not changing." He gave me a look. "Okay, just don't let her mess up build day." Not a chance. It felt good to say it. Honest, clean, no secrets, no performances. One night before bed, after we finished building a little robot that beeped when it hit walls, Mason sat on the edge of his bed and said, "I'm glad it's just us, Dad." I looked up from putting the screwdriver away. "Yeah?" He nodded. "I feel safe now." That hit hard, but not in a bad way. It wasn't the kind of moment where you pat yourself on the back. It was deeper than that. Like maybe, finally, I was giving my kid the one thing the Bellamys could never buy or gift wrap. Peace. And damn, if that wasn't enough. Christmas Eve morning, I opened the door and found a large box on the doormat. No knock, no signature. Just sitting there, in glossy silver wrapping paper like it had dropped out of the sky. The tag read, "To Mason Bellamy. For his future. No return address." But I didn't need one. I carried it inside and set it on the kitchen table. Mason was in the living room, half watching Home Alone while stacking Lego pieces into some weird battle tower. I called him over. "It's from your mom's side," I said. "Probably your grandparents." He raised an eyebrow. "You gonna let me open it?" I nodded once. "Yeah, but I'm checking it first." He stayed close as I peeled the paper away and opened the box. Inside was a brand new laptop. Top-tier model. I flipped it over, removed the battery cover, pulled out the packing foam. No notes, no hidden messages this time. Just a plain white envelope tucked next to the charger. I opened it slowly. Inside was a check, $5,000. Memo line, college savings. Mason looked at me. Can I keep the laptop? I looked him dead in the eye. Yeah, we'll keep it. He grinned. Thanks, Dad. But listen, I added. You need to hear this. That laptop, that check, it's not payment for love. It doesn't mean anything unless it comes with respect. Got it? He nodded right away. Got it. I deposited the money straight into his college fund that afternoon. Didn't touch a dime. Then I sent one email to my lawyer. Subject: Gift from Bellamy's. Message: Laptop and $5,000 check received. No communication permitted until formal boundaries are agreed to in writing. Please acknowledge receipt with their attorney. That was it, cold and clean. 2 days later, Alan fired back through his lawyer. One line: You're robbing him of opportunity. I didn't reply. 3 months passed, no calls, no packages, no surprise visits. Then one day, I opened my inbox and saw a message from Patrice. No subject, just 10 words. We hope he remembers we loved him, that's all. I didn't even open it. I hovered for a second, then hit delete. Just like that, gone. Mason turned 11 on a Saturday, and the whole thing was simple, just how he wanted. I grilled hot dogs in the backyard, while a few of his buddies from school played tag between the folding chairs. Danielle brought potato salad. My neighbor Jeff brought a case of root beer. No speeches, no drama. Just real people showing up because they gave a damn. Mason and I built a kite that morning. Red and white stripes, long blue tail. He drew stars on it with a Sharpie and signed his name like he was launching it into orbit. We took it out back before cake. Wind was perfect. He ran once across the lawn and got it flying like he'd done it 100 times. Don't let it crash, I yelled. I'm the pilot, Dad. I never crash. He flew that thing for an hour straight. No box showed up, no calls, no card. The Bellamys were ghosts. Mason didn't ask about them once. Later, when most of the kids were gone and the grill had cooled down, he handed me a folded piece of paper. I made you something. I opened it and damn near choked. Crayon drawing, me and him, standing on top of a rocket. Big clouds behind us. Banner at the top. My hero. You built everything with me, he said. Even me. I didn't say anything. Just pulled him into a hug and held on longer than usual. I hung it in my office that night, right above my desk. Dead center. After he went to bed, I sat out on the porch with a beer and the last bit of sun. Wind still strong. The tail of the kite was stuck up in the neighbor's tree, flapping like a flag. I pulled out my phone and texted Danielle. Me, no drama this year. Mason's happy. I'm finally breathing, she wrote back 2 minutes later. Danielle, proud of you. Took guts. I looked through the window at Mason, passed out on the couch, TV still on, blanket half off, hair sticking up. This was ours now. No strings, no poison. Just love. Exactly how it should be.